Professor Black Ops, you see it. Let's get it. Twitter, 0 day attack, 5.4 million records stolen and exfiltrated. So, once again, quick article, but Twitter got to do better. Twitter has to do better. So, there it goes. Twitter confirms 0 day used to expose data for 5.4 million accounts, which probably for Twitter's not a lot, man. I mean, there's probably 100 million people on Twitter. Twitter has confirmed a recent data breach caused by a non-patch 0 day vulnerability used to link email addresses, phone numbers to user accounts, allowing the threat actor to compile a list of 5.4 million users' account profiles. Last month, Bleeping Computer spoke to a threat actor who said they were able to create a list of 5.4 million Twitter account profiles using a vulnerability on the social media site. The vulnerability allowed anyone to submit an email address or phone number, verify if it was associated with a Twitter account, then retrieve the associated account ID. The threat actor then used the ID to scrape the public information for the account. This allowed the threat actor to create a profile of 5.4 million Twitter users in December 2021, including a verified phone number or email address, scrape public information such as followers' counts, screen name, login names, location, profile pictures, URLs, and other information. The redacted example is one of the created profiles, can be seen below. So that's scraped, it got the ID. Once again, it was a lookup, so they just abused the API to get the information. At the time, the threat actor was selling the data for $30,000 and had told Bleeping Computer there were interested buyers. Bleeping Computer later learned that two different threat actors purchased the data for less than the original selling price, and the data will likely be released for free in the future. Twitter confirms that 0 days used to collect data. Today, Twitter had confirmed the vulnerability used by the threat actor in December is the same one reported to and fixed by them in January 2022 as part of our HackerOne bug bounty. In January 2022, we received a report through our bug bounty program of a vulnerability that allowed someone to identify the email or phone number associated with an account, or if they knew a person's email or phone number, they could identify the Twitter account if one existed. The bug resulted from an updated to our code in 2021. When we learned about this, we immediately investigated and fixed this. At the time, we had no evidence of such someone had taken advantage of the vulnerability. But what this actually highlights is when Twitter does patches, they don't have a good text suite or automated test to make sure none of those updates will break anything. So that's part of DevSecOps and DevOps, and especially testing. You need to make sure you got a test suite that'll go back and test your code and make sure you didn't break anything when you do new features and new releases. As part of today's disclosure, Twitter told that they have already begun to send out notifications this morning to alert impacted users about whether their data breach exposes their phone number or their email address. At this time, Twitter tells us they cannot determine the exact number of people impacted by the breach. However, the threat actor claims to use the flaw to gather data for 5 million point four Twitter users. While no passwords were exposed in the breach, Twitter is encouraging users to enable two-factor authentication on their accounts to prevent unauthorized logins as a security measure. You should already be on that two-factor, that MFA, whatever that multi-factor authentication is. For those using the Pseudonym Twitter account, the social media company suggests you keep your identity as anonymous as possible by not using publicly known phone numbers or email addresses on your Twitter account. We are publishing the update because we aren't able to confirm every account that was potentially impacted and are particularly mindful of people with pseudonym accounts who can be targeted by state or other actors, warned Twitter advisory. Furthermore, as two different threat actors have already purchased the data, You just should be on the outlook for targeted spear phishing campaigns utilize the data to steal your Twitter login credentials. So they're gonna send you an email and try to fake like they're Twitter because they got Twitter's information to see if they can get your password account right. So that's why they suggested you go to the MFA. Once again, Twitter needs to get their testing together so when they do new features, they don't break old code that they already had. So once again, Professor Black Ops, Twitter's out here getting hacked. Be safe in these cybersecurity streets. Please subscribe.